2022 has basically been a bad year for chip companies. That is especially true of the companies that sell the most powerful chips. But what about the semiconductor chip shortage, you say? Well, that was basically about the cheapest chips with designs that are decades old. And yes, demand for cheap chips was always high. And there was a shortage during the pandemic. But not for the most expensive and powerful chips. The pandemic fueled a boom in laptop sales to enable people to work from home. But now, we are in the post-pandemic hangover. So what does this mean for chip companies? What does it mean for big tech companies? What does it mean for the economy? And what does it mean for the future of the United States? But before we get into all of that, please press the like button and leave us a comment below. We would love to hear from you. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified of upcoming videos when they are released. It seems like a bad dream that eventually became a nightmare. And this nightmare does not seem like it is ending. 2022 has been painful for semiconductor chip companies. AMD, Nvidia, and Intel. These are the three main players high-end semiconductor chip market. Their valuations are a recession in themselves. AMD has a market capitalization of $94.4 billion. That is down $83 billion from the end of 2021. That is a fall of 59.4% during this period. Nvidia was once in the top 10 most valuable companies in the world. Not anymore. The big chipmaker is now 21st. Nvidia market capitalization has plummeted by $431 billion. Nvidia's market capitalization was $732 billion to start the year. Now it is down to $301 billion. Needless to say, it has been a disaster for the shareholders of the group. Intel has seen its market value melt from over $206 billion in January to $105 billion. That is a drop of almost half of the value of Intel shares. Micron Technology market capitalization sank $44 billion since the start of the year. That is a 43% decline. Qualcomm, for its part, has a market capitalization of $135.8 billion. And that is down more than $66 billion, or 33%, since the start of the year. In all, the semiconductor manufacturers whose chips power almost all our electronic devices, our computers, most vehicles, the gigantic data centers of companies, have lost more than $725 billion in market value combined since January, noted a semiconductor industry report. And this stock market bloodbath will continue if we are to believe what AMD just said. Earnings calls from the group started with AMD on October 7th. Revenue is widely expected to be $5.6 billion. Which is a lot lower than the originally forecasted amount of $6.7 billion. Plus or minus $200 million, the report jokingly said. Keep in mind, this is a 29% increase in revenue over Q3 of 2021. But AMD set expectations high by predicting a surge in revenue of around 55%. Preliminary results reflect lower than expected client segment revenue, resulting from reduced processor shipments due to a weaker than expected PC market and significant inventory correction actions across the PC supply chain, AMD said. Basically, demand for PCs has slowed sharply. And that affects microprocessor manufacturers like AMD and Intel. Presumably, PC manufacturers are encountering large inventories. AMD is also earning less money on its products as profits have been squeezed. Earnings before interest, tax, expenses is expected to be about 50%. The group as a whole was hoping for 54%. Basically, the difference is due to prices competition in the face flagging demand for processor chips. And because AMD tried to liquidate its inventories in the graphics processor business. The PC market weakened significantly in the quarter, said AMD Chair and CEO Dr. Lisa Su. Our product portfolio remains very strong, Su continued. But macroeconomic conditions drove lower than expected PC demand, Su noted. And a significant inventory correction across the PC supply chain, Su added. Semiconductor manufacturers are impacted in much the same way as the rest of the technology sector. Fears of recession are gripping consumers and businesses. So everyone is cutting back on spending. All of this comes as the United States teeters on the brink of recession. Inflation is raging. And the Federal Reserve is aggressively raising interest rates. The purpose of the aggressive interest rate hikes by the Federal Reserve is to quell inflation. Inflation is raging at its highest level in over 40 years. The semiconductor business is finding itself at the epicenter of the war for control of technology between the United States and China. The Biden administration just passed the CHIPS Act and has just issued new directives. The purpose is to dry up Beijing's supply of microchips, especially the high-end ones used in advanced computing and military applications. The Department of Commerce also published new rules. The new rules limit American manufacturers from selling their most advanced chips to Chinese companies who are on a blacklist. The Bureau of Industry and Security is expanding controls on transactions involving items for supercomputer and semiconductor manufacturing end uses, said the Biden administration. This rule expands the scope of foreign-produced items subject to license requirements for 28 existing entities on the entity list that are located in China, the Biden administration continued. And, as you know, the chip companies are not the only ones reeling from the current macroeconomic environment. Google and Meta Platforms reported decidedly disappointing Q2 earnings. Not surprisingly, both companies revised or revoked forward guidance. Google was still profitable and growing, but top and bottom lines were disappointing. Meta has posted shrinking revenue for 2 quarters and maybe a third quarter as well. One Meta employee said, "The process of reapplying for jobs within a limited window internally is known as a sort of human resources purgatory they call the 30-day list." The long-standing rule at Meta is that employees whose jobs are eliminated will be terminated if they cannot get a new job inside Meta in a month. In the past, only undesirable employees failed to land new positions within the company. These days, employees with good reputations and strong performance reviews are being routinely fired. Meta has about 83,000 employees, which is 32% higher than at this time last year. Google also requires affected employees to apply for new jobs in order to remain employed by the company. Alphabet has 174,000 employees, which is 20% higher than this time last year. Shares in Meta Platforms are down by over 50% so far this year. And the market capitalization of Meta has fallen by over $685 billion since its all-time peak in September 2021. The market capitalization of Google is down 27% over the past 122 months. Alphabet chief executive Sundar Pichai said, "Google would slow hiring for the rest of the year and employees should be more entrepreneurial." Speaking at the Vox Code conference, Mr. Pichai said that Google needs to be 20% more productive. Google, Meta, and Snap are probably the most notable of the companies reducing headcount. It will be a challenge to return to an environment of stable prices without sacrificing the economic gains of the past 2 years, said Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. Last month, Meta Platforms CEO Mark Zuckerberg told employees that the company plans to reduce its hiring target for engineers from 10,000 to between 6,000 to 7,000 amid the market downturn. "Realistically, there are probably a bunch of people at the company who shouldn't be here," Zuckerberg said. But, what do you think? Please leave us a comment below and hit the like button. We would love to hear from you. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified of upcoming videos when they are released. Please share this video on social media. Thank you for watching.